In this Biomutant 10 Things You Should Know Before Playing guide, I'll be sharing some information that will make your playthrough a bit more enjoyable without spoiling any story-related or any exploration aspects of the game. In short, this guide is here to make you aware of some things that are possible so that you don't find them out halfway through your playthrough and wish you'd known them from the start. There are many helpful tips in Biomutant and a lot I could share here, but the first thing I would like you to know is about character creation. When you make your character in Biomutant, you'll have to assign attributes, and by doing so, change the appearance of your character. What you don't know is that not too far into the game, you'll be able to change this appearance without changing your attributes, and you can do this multiple times. What this means is that you should focus on the attributes you want during character creation once you've selected your chosen breed, because you can tweak your visual appearance later on. Note that you cannot change breeds, so be sure to select the one you like. Very often when exploring the world, you'll find armor that is much higher level than you, and you won't be able to use it for hours and hours. If you dismantle it, you gain the same materials as if you had dismantled any piece of armor, so it's not worth doing. Usually these armor pieces are worth good money, so it's highly advised that you sell them, particularly if the stats on them are not to your liking. This can give you a huge influx of cash that you can use to buy armor and weapons you can use right now and make you stronger. You'll find tons of loot in the game, so don't worry and just sell it to upgrade your character now. Something I discovered very early on in Biomutant when I was trying to reach items that were too high up is that you can actually jump onto a wall or beam and then jump off and then flip. This allows you to reach places you cannot with just your normal double jump, and you should keep this in mind when you're out exploring. You can reach a lot of things this way, maybe even some things you were not intended to. There are many fast travel locations strewn about the world of Biomutant, but you cannot access them if you've never interacted with them. For this reason, it is important for you to do so with every single one you find. You often need to return to places you've already been in Biomutant, and sometimes you've followed some shiny object trail so far away from it would take you 5 minutes to run back. Make sure to interact with them to save you time, because you can fast travel to any yellow dot on your map from just about any location. There are various types of hazardous locations you can explore in Biomutant, and often you won't be able to stay in these areas long without high resistances. However, you can actually jump into any water you see inside these areas to cleanse yourself and reset your build-up counter. It doesn't matter if the water looks contaminated or not, or how deep it is. As long as it's water, it will start to reduce your buildup or remove it altogether. Use this to your advantage early on in the game when your resistances aren't as high in order to stay in these zones longer and explore. Sort of piggybacking off this last point, you can increase your resistances using biopoints, which will then allow you to stay inside these zones longer before needing to dip into water or leave the area. The best way to gain these points is actually inside Biohazard zones specifically, which are sort of the green tinted ones. Here you will find lots of enemies that once defeated will grant you 1 bio point each, and you can find up to a dozen or more in some of these zones. This will allow you to crank your resistances quickly, allowing you to explore more. Coincidentally, this is also a good reason to pump Biohazard resistance first, so that you can farm these points faster. It is not uncommon in Biomutant to come across 2 different types of enemies attacking one another. When this happens, they are usually completely oblivious to what you're doing, giving you an opportunity to ambush them. Be careful when you do this, because if you attack both enemy groups, they will all turn to attack you and stop fighting one another. It's a much better idea to pick one type and don't attack the other until the first one is defeated, so that you only have to face one enemy group at a time. This becomes much less relevant later on in the game, but early on, it can be a lifesaver. A big part of Biomutant is exploring things on your own outside of questing and just finding loot and discovering new things. But sometimes you may not be able to figure out how to get some item or where you should go next. When this happens, it's best to look for the yellow paint. Experiment 101 has marked lots of areas in the game with bright yellow paint to direct you where to go for just these occasions, so be on the lookout for it, and once you find it, figure out how to interact with it. Maybe you need to climb there, or maybe you need to bust through a wall. Regardless, when in doubt, trust the yellow paint. There is no stat in Biomutant that increases ranged weapon damage, and often you'll have to wait for your gun to reload when in combat, tempting you into melee combat during this time. And sometimes it's just better to range enemies down with guns when melee is too dangerous. This means most players will usually do some melee and ranged attacks, particularly early on in the game before their build has fully developed. Because of this, I strongly urge you to increase your luck attribute unless you need to meet the requirements for certain equipment. This is because it boosts critical chance for both ranged and melee weapons, allowing you to deal more damage with both types of combat. Additionally, you also gain higher loot chance, which also provides you with more and better loot. Builds are somewhat dependent on loot, so this also should increase your effectiveness. The last tip is actually almost a bit of a cheat, but nevertheless it can save your life a lot. When traversing the landscape, a lot of times you'll fall into some water and you'll run out of energy and drown. Well, you cannot fast travel while you're swimming, but can if you jump in the air and then you go to your map. Use this trick to save yourself if you're about to die, so you don't have to reload and lose progress. That's all for our 10 things you should know before playing Biomutant Guide, and I hope you learned some things without spoiling too much of the game, things that will make your experience better. Be sure to check out our perks video to help you decide which class to choose, and a review coming in just a couple days.